Is your child forgetful, distracted? Does it feel like they're never listening? These are all signs that they could be experiencing overloaded working memory and really struggling. If we look at under the hood, which we will do in this video, exactly what's going on for them, we can start to look at ways to help them and solve them. Firstly, quick introduction to myself. My name's Jennifer. I'm a qualified neurodiversity consultant and workplace needs assessor. I've got ADHD myself and I'm parent to a neurodivergent child. So I see these things through the lens at work and also through my own experiences at home. And I'll be talking about some of those in today's video. But working memory is a real challenge for those of us with ADHD. And what working memory is that thing we're using to do our everyday tasks. It's a bit like a sticky note system where you've got a certain number of slots for sticky notes to go, and they'll fall off quite quickly as well. And for some people, they can have a really good working memory. For others, not at all. And I once had a colleague say to me, I thought you were really organised, but it actually turns out you're really scatty. And she was really right. And it was that point in my early career that I realised just how many strategies I had in place to hide the fact that if I didn't have these strategies, I wouldn't remember anything. Working memory challenges can look like defiance, they can look like laziness. So we ask our child to put their shoes on, put their coat on, grab their bag, go out to the car, and they don't do it. Or they go to the bathroom to brush their teeth. They actually end up going to the toilet, come out of the bathroom without having brushed their teeth. These things can appear and look like defiance, but actually they can be working memory challenges. And working memory challenges make life really hard. As Dr. Russell Barkley said in his famous quote, ADHD is not a condition of not knowing what to do, but about not being able to do what you know. And that's really important that we understand that, and that we understand this isn't defiance. This isn't chosen not to do something. It is a real struggle, because that means we change the way we approach how we support and deal with it. It means that punishments don't work. And the reason punishments don't work is punishments assume that a decision was made to do the wrong thing. And therefore, if we get a punishment, next time we won't want that punishment, and therefore we will do the right thing. It implies a choice. If, however, you've got a child who is not making a choice to not follow the instruction or forget to do the thing that they're meant to be doing, that punishment is creating shame. They know they don't want the punishment. They know what they should be doing. So when they're experiencing the punishment, they're just experiencing shame, frustration, anger. They don't know why they've not been able to do this. They don't know why they've got it wrong. They knew what they should have been doing. What these children actually need is scaffolding. It's support to do the right thing. Just like if a child had a broken leg, you'd give them crutches to help them walk. It's exactly the same when we're supporting with ADHD. We need to give the practical tools and teach them how to manage this deficit in their working memory. There is no evidence that any kind of brain training or anything like that is going to improve working memory. It's not something that we can practice and improve, but it is something that we can put tools in place to help us. So there are some really practical tips, and I've got 6 of them to share with you now, which as parents can really help you to not only support your child right now, but also teach them the skills for later in life so that they can do this for themselves when they become adults. Top of the list, and so important, is keeping instructions short. Don't give multiple instructions. Your child is not going to remember them. You are setting them up to fail. If you want them to put their coat on, then put their shoes on, then grab their bag, you need to ask them one at a time. Put your coat on. Now put your shoes on. Now grab your bag. One at a time. Don't give multiple instructions. And this is something you can advocate for at school as well, because it's really common in schools, the expectation that multiple instructions will be given and then a child will be able to follow those during the lesson. So advocating for this in school, pointing out that this is not defiance, this is a child who's struggling when they're given multiple instructions, is really crucial. Now my next tip, and this can be an alternative to giving lots of instructions, and that's visual reminders. So for the morning, for example, if you don't want to have to keep saying these things over and over again, and that can be really hard as a parent, if your voice starts to get that tone of frustration, I know mine does, or you're overloading your own working memory by trying to remember all the things your child needs to be doing, the fact you've got to tell your child to do those things, as well as trying to remember the things you're meant to be doing, your own working memory is starting to get overloaded. And whether you've got ADHD or not, there's a limit to working memory. It's just that those of us with ADHD, our limit's a lot smaller. So externalizing that to visual reminders can be really helpful. So a list on the wall that says, in the morning, we need to do all of these things. We need to get dressed. We need to do our teeth. We need to put our shoes on. Whatever it is for your mornings, put them onto a list. Put that up on the wall so your child can see it. You can see it. Have a list for yourself if it helps. Also, visual reminders for things that we might need on different days. So, for example, PE kit days or cooking ingredients and aprons days. Having that on the wall as well, so you've got it there to remind you to do the thing. You're not trying to hold that in working memory. But visual reminders don't have to just be lists. Sometimes it's putting things in the right place. So this could be getting the school uniform out and putting it on a pile rather than expecting the child to go into the drawers, the wardrobe to get their school uniform out, to remind them to put the school uniform on. For me, I have to remember to take my asthma pump. I never remember to take it, despite the fact I've been taking it for years now. But I do remember to do my teeth every day. So if I put my asthma pump next to my toothbrush, then I know that I'm going to be remembering to take my asthma pump. It's that visual cue. Again, I can't put it away, so it's no good being in the cupboard. It needs to be out in front of me, sat in front of my toothbrush in order to remind me to do it. So those visual reminders can be really helpful. Which brings me on to my next tip of predictable routines. So where possible, having predictable routines can really help. Now, the example I've just given with my asthma pump, which should be part of a predictable routine now, I say it's been a few years, it hasn't sunk in despite being part of that routine, but I have managed to find a way to fit it into something that has sunk in as part of that routine. So where possible, creating that predictable routine of we do these things in this particular order, these are the things we do every day, that can really help too, because that means it reduces not only the working memory pressures of remembering all the things we need to do, although it is still there as part of working memory, but it reduces that because it follows that pattern. But it also reduces the need to be making decisions. And those decision makings put extra strain on working memory, also creates other challenges with ADHD. So reducing those decisions can also be really helpful. As children get older and we're supporting them to be more independent, encouraging them to take their own notes is really important. There's a pressure sometimes to have strategies when you're younger that then get taken away as you're older. So, for example, it might be socially acceptable to have pictures on the wall showing the morning routine to a child in infant school, primary school. But once they get to sort of 14, 15, 16, maybe that's not socially acceptable anymore. We have to demonstrate in our homes that these are accommodations that we need, and we need to normalise those. The same way as we need to normalise, if I don't write this down, I am not going to remember it. You could have just told me, and my children will ask me for things or say things to me, and so if you've just told me that as we're running out the door and I've got 10 things going around in my mind to make sure we've got all the stuff we need to run out the door, and I've not written that down, I am never going to remember it. So getting these into patterns where we externalize, where we write things down, where we might say to them, oh, send me that on WhatsApp or write that on the whiteboard. We've got these things in place that are strategies for us as well as for them, which is really important because that means we're modeling. We don't have to keep telling them what to do, and our teenagers don't want to be told what to do, but we can model what works. And even if they go through phases of rejecting it, they're still seeing that and learning from it. And that's really important. And it really does help them to take away that shame. So when they're being expected to remember things that they're not being given the ability to write down, say when they're at school, it helps to take away the shame by being able to sort of demonstrate to themselves that actually all I needed was to be able to write that down, and then it would have been done and it would have been fine. So encourage that, encourage self-advocacy, encourage them to understand why they need it, that it's not something to be ashamed of. It's just something that if we've got these strategies, we can make life a whole lot easier. And I've mentioned their shame, and it's really important when our children do forget something that we don't respond with shame. So if your child's just walked out of the bathroom, they were meant to go in there to do the teeth, and actually they've ended up going to the toilet and walking out without doing their teeth, don't sort of like roll your eyes and be like, oh, again, or you'd forget your head if it wasn't screwed on. That was said to me a lot as a child. Or even, or of course you forget, or you didn't brush your teeth, why haven't you brushed your teeth? Anything that makes it appear like defiance. But just giving that gentle reminder and gentle prompt. So just in a nice gentle tone of, did you brush your teeth? Or think you forgot to brush your teeth? And something that works for your child as that kind of gentle reminder, as opposed to that criticism. And if it's something that's happening repeatedly, then look at, are there things we could put in place that could help this? So, I don't know, a poster on the back of the door that says, have you brushed your teeth? Might work, it might not. But we can start to look at, okay, we're dealing with this on a regular basis. This same thing keeps happening. What can we put in place that helps to deal with why it's happening, which means we've got to understand why it's happening, and then we can put in place a solution that helps. And different solutions will work for different people. If you want to understand more about why it's happening, check out my video on the iceberg, the ADHD iceberg, which looks more at the challenges kind of under the surface that explains some of the behaviours that we're seeing above the surface. And my final tip for this video, and this is really important again, and it links back to the instructions one at the beginning of the tips, and that is about reducing distractions. So if we're asking a child for something, let's say we're asking them what they want for dinner tonight. Maybe we've given them 2 or 3 choices and we're asking them what they want. They've got to hold those choices in their mind and make a decision. There's quite a lot of working memory going on there, and quite a lot of executive function just pressures. So if we then start, whilst they're deciding, talking to them about, oh, don't forget you've got your ballet lesson this evening, or don't forget you're off to football this evening, whilst they're trying to make that decision, then that is going to, again, put something else onto their working memory that's already challenged. And chances are the things you've given them have fallen out of their working memory by this point. For me, sometimes if I'm giving those decisions and my child's really struggling, I might write them down. Like, here's your 3 dinner decisions written down in front of you, because that can help in some situations. But also think about what context they're in. So you might be, oh, right, I've got to make dinner now. I need to go and figure out what dinner I'm making tonight. I've got these 2 choices. I'm going to go and ask them. But they're in the middle of a game or in the middle of watching a TV program. If we try and ask them whilst they're in the middle of something else, we're just overloading or making it even impossible for them to focus on what we're asking them. Find a pause point in the game. Wait a minute until they can pause the game or pause the TV, and they can then focus on us to be able to focus on the question we're going to ask, the information they need in order to be able to answer us. They need that focus, otherwise we're just overloading them, and again, we're setting them up to fail. So that's just a few tips on how you can support your child with working memory, and it can really change family life. When we move away from the assumption that our child is being defiant or being lazy, not caring, being rude, and we move to actually they are struggling in this situation, what can I do to help them? We reduce the arguments, we reduce the tears, we reduce the meltdowns, we reduce our stress. Because we start to realise this isn't targeted at us. This isn't our child being defiant or rude to us. This is our child struggling. And then we can start to look at, well, what can I do to support them? And if we find that the things we're having to do to support them challenge us, because often neurodivergent conditions are hereditary and we can find the same challenges, then we can start looking at that challenge and work out how we can get that support, how we can support ourselves to make things easier. That will start to make family life a lot calmer. And that's not just theory, it's not just an idea. I have seen it. I have seen the change for myself, that when I move away from assuming that my child is being rude to me or defiant, and I look at how I can support, it changes everything. And it takes away that shame cycle, it takes away the arguments, it takes away the tears. And I think that's what most of us are just looking for, that calmness in our family lives. And it also means that we're giving our children the skills for future, and also the skills to be able to self-advocate at school and again in future with employers, to know what their challenges are, to understand them. It's ideal if we can talk about them as well, and then we can also talk about the solutions that we need to be putting in place. For more in-depth videos on the challenges that our ADHD children are struggling with, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, because I'll be putting out a new video every week, and there will be more of these in-depth videos as well as plenty of practical hints and tips. If you want to work with me directly, have a look at the description below for details of how you can do that, and I look forward to seeing you next video.